Good afternoon, everybody. Here we are again. This is actually, we have today's class, and then we have another one. And I want to introduce you in these last two classes to the world of Leela, when Bhagavan, Ishvara, that we've spoken so much about, plays in today's class very mischievously with his beloved devotees, his bhaktas. And why does he do that? Because play is a feature of love. When you love someone, you interact with them playfully, and that's just a way of sharing love. And so let's have a look at that. We'll bring up our passage, dive straight in, and let the text speak for itself. We start off with the birth ceremony, and then we'll go into our first Leela. Leela is a very important term in Krishna theology. It's when God plays, engages with his bhaktas for no other purpose other than to exchange love. This is not Krishna, the Bhagavad Gita, as the Lord of all beings, as God with a big G, and teacher of the Gita, and giving scripture, the Bhagavad Gita for humanity through Arjuna. This is God who's hiding all that majesty, and taking the and accepting the form of a little child. Just why? To engage in love. You can't love a majestic, awesome creator God. It's kind of terrifying if you went in front of think how you feel if you went in front of just the president of a country, or a senator. You'd be a little bit intimidated. You wouldn't be goofing around and joking and being affectionate. It would be very namaha namaha, very formal. So that's the case, right? Even in Rutgers, if you went to see the dean or something, you'd be a little bit of intimidation perhaps there, and a little bit of formality. And formality creates distance. So if that's the case, just meeting, even as a professor, sometimes, a student will come and I can feel they're a little bit ill at ease. And I, of course, immediately try to create an atmosphere of affection and security and all of that. But so what to speak of God? If you actually went in front of God, imagine there'd be terror, actually, it'd be fear. The wonderful thing about Krishna theology is that Krishna hides all that. And his devotees don't know he's God. Because if you know you're God, even if the God takes the form of a child, there'll still be that formality, that awe. Or remember Arjuna, when he saw that form on the battlefield, it terrified him. So there would be awe, and with awe comes distance, and with distance is the opposite of love, which is closeness and intimacy and so forth. So that's just a few words. Let's get into the text and read this Bhāva blueprint for your quiz. Make sure you read this. Explains Bhāvas are the different types of love. There's even amongst in our relationships, we have the love of a parent to a child, and that's different from the love of a friend to a friend, and again, that's different from the love of a lover to a beloved. So these are the different bhavas, and this is the Vatsalya bhav, the maternal bhav, the love of Krishna's mother Yashoda, and all the elderly cowherd ladies who are the same. The mother and her friends, that they're called gopis. There's two types of gopis. The elder ones, gopis are the cowherd herding ladies. Remember, Krishna's born in a fairly lowly community. If you think, that's like Jesus Christ is born in a manger, right? Very lowly from a social point of view. And so is Krishna. In fact, when he goes to Mathura, the big Kamsa ridicules him. You're just a cowherder. What are you doing here? And of course, the message is that God doesn't know high or low. God accepts everybody. Anyone can become a bhakta. You don't have to be a member of the nobility. You don't have to be a great Sanskrit scholar. You don't have to be a wealthy merchant. You don't have to be a skillful singer or craftsman. Anyone, what do you have to be? You have to be someone who is opening their heart and accepting God into the heart. It's called pranidhana by Patanjali, surrendering to God, meaning dedicating everything. Okay, that's all you need. And therefore anybody can do it. Okay, So then the Garga, the family priest, we're in book 10 of the Bhagavatam, chapter 8. Now Krishna's been born, remember, the babies were switched. So Kamsa knows the little girl was switched into the prison, and Krishna was then put on the bed of Yashoda in the little cow herding community in the forest. And in the palace, the great, of the great city of Mathura, King Kamsa had imprisoned his sister, and the baby was switched. And so Devaki, Krishna's actual biological mother, has a little girl placed on her bed. So Kamsa comes rushing in when he hears the baby, the eighth, it's the eighth child supposed to kill him. There was prophecy in the beginning. Comes in, ready to brutally slaughter that little girl. And then she flies up into the air as Durga with 8 arms or 16, I can't remember. Right, you fool, she says. And he's, of course, terrified of the goddess. You fool, don't you know that the child that's to kill you has already been born? So Kamsa knows Krishna's out there, somewhere out there, doesn't know where. So as is typical in traditional India, you get your birth chart. You bring in the astrologer, and they say, something about your birth chart that will help you with, for example, your marriage. When time to get married, you try to find a compatible birth chart to the person you're going to marry. So here he is, Garga, but they're doing it in secret. They don't want to put on a big show. Normally it's, a big event, and you have a ceremony and some feasts, but they don't want to alert Kamsa. If there's too much ceremony, Kamsa's he sent his men around looking for in fact, they slaughter all the newborn children, very much like the Christian story of King Herod, if you're familiar with that. Okay, so they're in some cow shed, and the priest, and I'm not going to read this whole thing, but he's going to now look, based on the constellations when Krishna was born. Remember, they were supremely auspicious, and he knows. He doesn't want to come out and say, this is Narayana, Vishnu, that's your son, but he hints at it very strongly, right? So his brother is Balaram. That was the 7th child, remember? It looked like it was a miscarriage, but was transferred to the womb of Rohini, is Rohini, verse 12, who is the co-wife of Vasudeva. Okay, don't get confused with all the names if you read the stories. Right, Krishna's real parents, Krishna's real parents are Vasudeva and Devaki. They're in jail in Mathura, the city of Mathura, and in the little forest community of cow herders. The parents that Krishna grows up with, because the children were switched, you can call them foster parents if you want, are Nanda. Did I say Vasudeva before? Nanda and Yashoda. So these stories are going to be Nanda and Yashoda. And the real parents, Devaki and Vasudeva, they're going to fade into the background now. Okay, so Nanda, so Nanda brings in the family priest, the Purohita, and he says, this one, the son of Rohini, who's Balaram, remember the name, because he'll be in these stories, in the Leelas, Leela meaning an episode, a little episode, like a chapter, where Krishna engages in a particular act or a particular, sequence of events, and that's one Leela, and then there's another Leela, and you'll get the hang of it soon. He says, this one, the son Rohini, gives pleasure to his loved ones by his qualities. So he'll be known as Rama, but not Rama of the Ramayana. This is Balarama. And because of his strength, Bala, he'll be known as Bala. So that's how put it together, you get Balaram. And we're not going to read every verse. 13. And bodies of 3, and each incarnation of Vishnu has a different color. So saying different colors according to the Yuga. Yuga are the 4 ages, not yoga, Yuga. So there are 4 ages. In Hindu chronology, just like the Greeks had their 3 ages, the gold and the silver and the bronze. So the Hindus had 4. And so in different incarnations come at different yugas, and they have different colors. Don't worry about any of that. So now he says, this son of yours, let's read 15. There are many names and forms of your son, right? Because there's many incarnations of God, not just one. Hindus would think that's a silly idea to think there's only one son of God or one incarnation of God. There's so many, according to different times and places. So there are many names and forms of your son, according to deed and quality. So all of the names mean something. So Krishna actually means black, because his color is black. In this, when he manifests as Krishna, is black. And Balaram, his brother, is Bala, right? Strong. And Rama, down here, verse 11, verse 12, he gives pleasure. To put together Balaram, it means someone who's strong and gives pleasure. That's the name of his brother, his slightly elder brother. People who are very fortunate. Okay, previously, let's go back up. This boy who was the delight of Gokula. Gokula is the place in the forest where they are. Mostly it's going to be called Vrindavan or Vraj. So don't get confused. All the names, Vrindavan, Gokula, Vraj. And the Gopas are the cow herders, male. Gopis, female. Gopa, male. Remember that? It's going to reoccur. So he's the delight of Gokula and the Gopis will bring good fortune. Right? 17. Previously, in times of anarchy, the righteous were harassed by bandits. Protected by him, they were strengthened and conquered. And they conquered the bandits. Remember when Krishna says in the Gita chapter 4, when do I incarnate? Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushkritam. Go back and check Gita chapter 4 at the beginning. I come to kill the bad guys, protect the good guys, and establish dharma. So people who are very fortunate place their affection in this boy. That's bhakti. He's indirectly, he's not coming out and saying he's Narayana, but he's saying everything he possibly can to communicate that message. Because he doesn't want the word to get out, because Kamsa, the evil king, is looking to try to kill. By the way, Kamsa's been killed in the two previous lives by Vishnu, so this is the third, and he knows Vishnu's already killed him in 2 lives. This time he wants to, he's imagining he can kill God. Enemies cannot overpower them, just as the demons cannot overpower those who have Vishnu in their side. He's saying, look, no one can overcome your boys, just like no one can overcome Vishnu. He's not coming out saying he is Vishnu, but how close can you get? Just like, he says. So therefore, Nanda, right, this is the foster father. We're going to be calling him his father, but remember, they would switch. It's not technically the biological father. So therefore, Nanda, the son of yours is equal to Narayana. Again, he's indicating the same thing. In qualities, in splendor, in fame, and authority, or what else? How can you be equal? I mean, if you're equal in all those things, how about you just, that means you are Narayana. Protect him with great diligence. Of course, you don't need to protect God, but in the Leela, the world of Leela, Krishna is acting like a human, and therefore his parents act like parents, and the role of the parent is to protect the child. So after being instructed about himself in this way, and Garga had gone to his home, Nanda was filled with joy. Okay, so that's the background. Okay, now we're moving into a Leela. So after a short time had passed, we know now there's a new episode in the story. Whenever there's a new episode, we call it a Leela. So Balaram, the brother, and Keshava, lots of names for Krishna. I put in brackets next to it Krishna, so you don't get confused. Balaram and Krishna roamed about Vraj, the place also known as Gokula. It's a holy place in India today. Today we call it Vrindavan. I had been going there for 40 years, my friends. I first went there in 79. I hitchhiked to India when you could do that back in the 70s, before Iran became a dangerous place, before the Russian war with the Afghanis, way back before most of you were born. And I lived for a few years there. And then since that time, I've been going every year, obviously last year because of COVID. And so Vraj is the colloquial name, and Vrindavan is now what it's called. It's a holy place. You can go online. Of course, it's been, nouveau riche, modern India with all of its, with the pollution and all of the things that come along with economic development. And that's also affecting these holy places. So they're not the same as when I first went there. But such is the progress of, I don't know if it's progress, but such is the passage of time. So after a period of time, Balaram and Keshava roamed about Vraj, crawling on their hands and knees. This is God, God Almighty. And he's crawling around like a little child. Why is he doing that? To give pleasure to his devotees. The two of them crawled in the dust of Vraj like snakes, dragging their legs, which gave off sweet sounds and tinkling noises from the anklets. They delighted in the sound, and so they followed people, right? You know how little babies, they crawl after people, and then they realize all of a sudden they've gone a bit far from their mums, and they get scared and they run back. So they're delighted in the sound, and so they follow people, but then scurried back to their mothers as if frightened and confused. The two mothers who breast was seeping milk from affection. There's going to be a lot of talk about the mothers at this, when these young, Krishna is a baby, breast seeping milk. And of course, the point of that is to give us an indication of how intense their bhakti was for God. When your bhakti is intense, there's physiological symptoms. Remember when Arjuna saw the form on the battlefield, his hair stood on end, but not in a good way, in fear. Well, if you're Krishna's mother, or if you're the elderly gopis, your love is a maternal love. Maternal love. So when you think of your child, when bhakti means you're thinking of a child all day intensely. That's what bhakti means. You're thinking of God all day intensely. So if you're thinking of God in that maternal mode, your love is a maternal love, then that intensity of that love has physiological effects. And for his mother, their breasts seep, and seep milk. And I mentioned that because we're going to run into this several times. So I just wanted you to understand that the point is, it's not like the author's writing about dripping breasts. The author is trying to give us a window into the state of mind of someone who loves God in the mood of a mother loving a child, because there's many ways of loving God. Why should there be just one? God is unlimited, with unlimited qualities, so there's unlimited ways of loving God. So this is one. And all of them have their physiological side effects, because our bodies are not meant to. They're designed for interacting with the material world. But when we encounter God, that in your body blows. It acts weirdly. So your hair stands on end, tears fall out of your eyes. If you're have the love of a mother, your breasts, you seep milk. These are all physiological symptoms of love. Okay, so they're meant to give us an idea of how intense how intense the bhakta is concentrated and absorbed in God, which is the goal of life. So the two mothers who breast was seeping milk from affection, right? That's the whole point. Picked their two boys up in their arms. The boys looked adorable with mud smeared on their bodies. After offering, this is the Ishwara that we've been talking about all semester. Here he is as a little baby, playing that role. After offering their breasts and gazing at their faces and their tiny teeth as they suckled, the mothers fell into a blissful state. And another thing we could say is, there may have not been this prudency about breasts in ancient India. Why should there have been? Like now we kind of, we're I guess feminists are trying to demand equality. Why should we have to cover our breasts and men don't? Some, parts, for example, in Europe, you go to the beaches in Italy, women lie topless. It's legal in England, but you won't see many people doing it because there's still this kind of like hesitation and embarrassment. So these are cultural. This is a cultural thing that we are part of a culture. In American beaches, you don't see women topless. You do in Europe. You do in France and Italy. So that's culture right there, right? Even in our world, there's a difference in culture. What to speak of 2,000 years ago? There wasn't this sort of like weirdness about a women's breast. They're part of the female anatomy. Okay, genitals were covered, of course, male and female, but there's less of a taboo, shall we say, about the upper part of the body, whether male or female. So there's a lot of talk about breasts, and they're quite comfortable, quite normal, no weirdness about it, as you will see. So after offering their breasts and gazing at their faces and their tiny teeth as they suckled, the mothers fell into a blissful state. Now, when the women found the boys' childhood Leela, okay, Leela is when the boys are getting up, playing, or an episode, an adventure could be a Leela, a particular playful activity could be a Leela. It's just an episode of Krishna's life is a Leela, and they have names. And you'll see, you'll get it in a minute. So this one is called the eating of the mud Leela. That's all. and you'll see why. When the woman found the boy's childhood Leela, it just means God engaging in loving play to give satisfaction to his devotees. Love is two ways. It's not just that we love God. God loves the bhakta back. And so God in the Krishna tradition, Krishna will do just as the devotee is trying to please God, right? So God is trying to please the devotee, and he takes whatever form pleases the devotee. So this is love. It's two-way. Right? So if you think you love someone, you do things that you try to please that person. You buy them some chocolates that you know they like, or some flowers that you know they like, or whatever it might be. But it has to be two-way. Otherwise, it's selfish. It's just, then it's not really love. So Krishna here is giving pleasure to his devotees. So when they found the childhood Leela worth watching, the ladies of Braj would leave their households and enjoy themselves, looking and laughing as the two were dragged hither and thither by the calves whose tail they had grasped. So the little boys, Krishna and Balaram couldn't walk, and you know what toddlers are like. They grab hold of anything to pull themselves up. So they're in a cow herding community. They grab the tails of the calves. By the way, the calves are great bhaktas from many lives. To be born a calf with Krishna is a great sign of great devotion. So then the calves bolt, right? If someone grabs your tail, and of course they love it. They love it when Krishna does that, and they get to pull Krishna around in the dust. So, and then the gopis would all laugh at this, the cowherd ladies, right? Perfectly safe, nice soft dust. The two boys are very active, and their plays sometimes took them out of bounds, right? There's a safe area. They're in the forest. So when their mothers could not safeguard their sons, right? What's out of the bounds? Well, there's horned and fanged animals, there's fire, there's swords, there's water, there's winged creatures and thorns. When they, for some reason, they're cooking or something, and they don't realize it, and the boys crawl away. When they couldn't find them, let's say, nor even perform their household duties, they became very anxious, because that's the love of a mother, always an anxiety. But anxiety for the well-being of the child. So Krishna's mother showed us the same. Anyway, now we move on to after a short time, O kingly sage. Remember, Pariksha is the kingly sage. He's hearing all this, 7 days to live, and Shuka, the naked sage, is reciting all of this to King Parikshit, grandson of Arjun. You remember that from the first class. So after a short time, Balaram and Krishna were walking easily in Gokul and no longer had bruised knees. So they'd grown up. They weren't crawling and bruising their knees, and they were now toddling. Thereafter, Bhagavan Krishna, along with Balaram, his brother, played with the boys of Vraj, the place of the same age, arousing rapture in the women of Vraj. This is the whole point. He's playing just to give delight to his devotees. They love to watch his little antics, just like we do. We like to watch our little kids being silly and playing, and isn't that delightful? So imagine if God, why can't God give pleasure to his devotees in that way? Now they're going to, just to give you a little map of what's the next Leela, they're going to pretend they're upset with Krishna, because Krishna sneaks into their houses and steals their butter. And of course they love it when he does that, because they get to watch him and see him and delight in that. But they, sometimes in love, you want to spice it up a bit. So they're going to go and sneak to his mother. I don't know if you say that in America. Sneak means you're going to, you tattletale, you say, oh, somebody did this, that, and the other, and you go and tell some authority, right? Well, I don't know what you call that in English. In England, we say sneak or rat. You rat on someone, going to tell on him. But they're not doing it because they're upset. They're just doing it to see what will Krishna do if we complain to his mother. What will his beautiful little face look like when he hears us telling his mum what he's been up to? They just want to see his face and see it change, and sometimes he's happy and sometimes he's afraid, and they just want to enjoy the bliss of God and the bliss of the beautiful face of God in its infinite variety of emotions and moods. God is infinite, so infinite emotions and moods. So one time, observing the delightful childish activity of Krishna, the gopis, the elder cowherd ladies, go as a cow, and P are the ladies who look after the cows. They gathered and they spoke tongue-in-cheek. Tongue-in-cheek means they're not serious, they're just kidding. And they spoke tongue-in-cheek as follows, in the presence of his mother, who was listening. They say, let's see what happens if we go and sneak, tattletale or whatever on Krishna. Here's what they say. Sometimes he releases the calves at the wrong time, and he laughs when cries of protest are raised. This is God being very mischievous in a delightful way, in a way that his devotees love. Moreover, he eats the tasty milk and whey that he steals by means of his thieving devices. God is a thief. He's only 2 or 3, but he's stealing butter. He divides the curds and whey and he feeds the monkeys. And if he doesn't eat, he breaks the pot. If there's nothing in the pot, he breaks it. So he's a little vandal. He's a little thief. He's a little bit, all right. He's just being a delightful little 3-year-old. When there's nothing available and he leaves angry with the household, he blames the children. Oh, there's nothing in your house. And he blames the younger children. When he cannot reach, right, because the butter, they're cow herders, so their business, their livelihood is butter, and they hang it in pots from the, they hang them up so the rats can't get in. So when he can't reach it, he devises a system to get things by arranging benches and rice husking mortars. So he piles a bench with a rice husking mortar on top so he can reach the pot. He's only tiny. Knowing what is being placed inside the pots, hanging on rope slings, the cunning boy makes a hole in them, right? Because he's so small, he can't reach over the top of the pot. So he makes a hole in the bottom. Of course, he's acting like a 3-year-old. A 3-year-old is going to say, oh, if I make a hole, the butter will flow out. But the 3-year-old is not thinking, well, hang on a minute, how am I going to block the hole after I've had the butter? How am I going to stop the whole lot flowing out? So he doesn't. So Krishna himself is under his own yoga maya, his power of he covers his own majesty. So nobody else, everyone else is under yoga maya. They don't know he's God. He puts himself under yoga maya so he can have fun. There's no fun if you know I'm God Almighty, right? You need a break from that. He just wants to be a 3-year-old and just be mischievous. So he makes a hole in the pots at the time of day when the gopis are absorbed in doing other things, household chores. His own body, which bears clusters of precious jewels, functions as light in the dark house. So they're saying his body, because he's not made of matter. It's Brahman, so effulgent. But they don't think anything's weird about it because they're under yoga maya. Oh, look, wouldn't it be weird if you let some baby lit up a dark room just from the effulgence of their body? Normally you'd be like, what the heck? But if you're under yoga maya, you just think, oh, that's Krishna being cool. Krishna does all this cool stuff. So they keep on complaining. When he's engaged in such audacities, he passes urine and other things in our houses. He goes as a little pee in a pool in the corner. So they're complaining. Remember, he's 2 or 3 years old. He's just beginning to walk. I mean, how old are kids when they walk? 2? I don't know. He's a toddler. Although his deeds are carried out by theft, right, stealing the butter, he outwardly appears virtuous. He's pretending, oh, yeah, I didn't do anything. So this is the Krishna of Bhakti, my friends. Bhaktas love this. They love this idea of God covering his majesty. They find this adorable. And this steals the heart of the Krishna Bhakta. And that's how you become a Krishna Bhakta. Your heart is stolen by God in this form. And if you're a Ram Bhakta, your heart is stolen by the activities of Ram, and so forth with Shiva and the other wonderful forms of Ishvara, Narayana. But Krishna Bhakta is specifically one who is enchanted by that God manifesting himself in this way. So in this way, these affairs were related by the women as they gazed at Krishna's beautiful face with its fear-stricken eyes. He's now afraid because the gopis are telling his mom about all this mischief he's been up to, right? Stealing butter, pretending he's virtuous, peeing and pooing at the corner of the gopis' houses, blaming the kids, and so on. In this way, these affairs were related by the women as they gazed at Krishna's beautiful face with its fear-stricken eyes. With a smile on her face, Yashoda did not want to scold Krishna. She's been naughty, but she loves her child, and of course, a child being God, she loves him a million times more than a normal mother loves a normal child, which is already. Already in the normal world, a mother will give up her life for the child. Imagine Because God's your child, how much more so that would be the case. Now we move into the next Leela. So that's one Leela. That's one little episode, little story about him stealing butter, feeding the monkeys. And then we go once. So that introduces the next little Leela. So once when Balaram, the brother, and the other cowherd boys were playing, they complained to Mother Yashoda, the mother, Krishna's eaten mud. So this Leela is called the mud eating Leela. That one was the butter stealing Leela. Now you know what a Leela is. It's like a little chapter. Yashoda was concerned for his welfare and scolded Krishna, whose eyes seemed to be full of fear. Grasping him in her hand, she said to him, and up we go, why have you eaten? Oh, I skipped a page. She said to him, what's going on? Why have you secretly eaten mud, you naughty boy? These young friends of yours are saying so, and so's your elder brother. So Krishna goes, Mother, I didn't eat any mud. So now he's lying. He's a little thief. He's a little liar. He's a little peer. He pees in the corner. What else? He's this is God. This is all delightful to the bhaktas, to see God being mischievous and naughty, very naughty. Mother, I didn't eat any mud. Verse 35. They're all spreading false accusations. If you think they're speaking the truth, then you look into my mouth yourself, he says to his mom. If that is the case, then open wide, she said. Now, every so often we're reminded, we the reader, that this is God. Lord Hari Krishna, whose supremacy cannot be constrained, nobody can tell God what to do. But who here, this is important. This bit's important, my friends. But who is God assuming the form of a human boy for play, for love and play and Leela? No one can tell him to open his mouth, but he's willing to do that out of love for his mother. So he opened wide. Now this curtain of Yogamaya, remember, Yogamaya is the power that causes the devotees of Krishna, all his mother, his father, all his little friends, the gopis, all of the members of the cowherding community, they don't know he's God because of Yogamaya. They know he does some pretty credible stuff, but they don't think anything special about it. Oh, that's just Krishna doing amazing things. Now he lifts the veil of Yogamaya and he shows that he's God. So she told him to open his mouth. He's only 3, right? She's on his lap. Open your mouth. So he opens it up. And what happens? 37, Yashoda saw there the universe in his mouth of moving and non-moving things, meaning everything, right? Because things are either alive or they're not alive. There's matter, there's living things and non-living things, right? But rocks and stones, and then there's plants and living things and humans and animals. She saw space, the cardinal directions, the sphere of the earth with its oceans. She saw everything. Islands, mountains, air, in other words, all reality, the whole universe. Air and fire, the moon, the stars. She saw the circle of constellations. She saw water, light, the wind, the sky, the evolved senses, the mind, the elements, and the 3 guna qualities. I mean, if this was written nowadays, they would say, she saw the force of gravity, electromagnetism, and all the forces of the universe. She saw the universe expanding out from the Big Bang. She saw subatomic particles. They would use that kind of language. So this is the equivalent from their point of view of what the universe consists of. She saw this universe with all its variety differentiated into bodies, which are the repository of souls. So everything is living. You look out the window, there's bushes, there's trees, there's blades of grass. If it's alive, it's got a soul. A soul by karma took that particular birth. So she saw all of that. She saw the time factor, that which moves, the mover, the ultimate mover, which Aristotle got all intrigued about and ended up with God being a prime mover. She saw the time factor, nature and karma. In other words, she sees all the laws of nature and all the ingredients of nature, everything, all reality in the mouth of a 3-year-old child, Krishna. Seeing, and then inside that, she saw the world, the planet Earth, and she saw India, and she saw Vrindavan, and she saw herself inside the mouth of Krishna, like one of those surrealist paintings. Seeing Vraj as well as herself in the gaping mouth in the body of her son, she was struck with bewilderment. All right, now notice her love is now shattered. Then she realizes it's God. Love finished, broken. Now you see the importance of Yoga Maya. You can't love God. You can't have an intimate relationship with God if God shows his majesty. It's terrifying, just like Arjuna. That's why we read chapter 11, the Gita, similar sort of thing. Now look at her. She goes, is this a dream? Is it a supernatural illusion? Or is it just the confusion of my own intelligence? Or is it in fact some inherent divine power of this child of mine? Who is he? I thought he was my baby, little baby. Who is this? And now she starts offering namaha, namaha, namaha as in a very formal, non-maternal sort of way. She starts to worship him as Narayana, the God on high. Okay. Therefore, I offer homage to his feet, which are the support of this world. Now she's no longer thinking of him as a adorable little child that needs nursing, that she needs to check to see if he's eaten mud because that wouldn't be good. You know, any mother, if the kid's eating mud, you know, that would be concerned, trying to get the mud out of his mouth. And now it's all changed because she's had this vision of his real nature. She goes, he is my refuge. Through his illusory power, forget all that. So then she starts to namaha, namaha, talking about his feet. Let's go back to 41. His feet, which are the support of this world, from them and through their agency, this world manifests. Everything manifests from, well, not feet literally, but Krishna's Shakti. Their true nature cannot be known by the senses nor by reason. They are very difficult to perceive by thought, words, deeds, or intellect. Who can understand God through the thought, words, deed? Remember all those passages in the Upanishads. Speech cannot go there, mind cannot grasp it. So she's starting to talk like that. So he is my refuge through his illusory power. Now this is not the yoga maya, but regular maya, the ignorance, avidya. It's the power of God. Arises notions such as I am me, he is my husband, this is my son. This is illusion, right? Because we're really Atman. We're not these bodies, and then we think this person is my husband or wife, and this is my son. These are all illusory relationships from the point of view of the Atman, the soul. The soul doesn't have these relationships. The body that does. So through his illusory power rise ignorance notions such as I am me, he over there is my husband, this is my son, I'm the virtuous wife, I'm the protectress of the wealth of the ruler of Raj, and all the gopas and gopis along with the wealth derived from the cattle are mine, right? Because she's the queen, Nanda is a sort of king, but it's a small time king in the sense it's just a small cowherding community, but still they had the leader, Nanda was a leader. And she's thinking, because of illusion, I'm thinking, I'm the queen of the community, and these are all my subjects, and this is my son, this is my husband. None of that belongs to the Atman. Atman is eternal consciousness. It dies, and it goes into this next life. It leaves all that behind. So she has all these realizations. But what is the point? The point is her love for God has now been shattered by knowledge of who he really is. So, and Krishna wants love. God is love. So love has to be intimacy. And intimacy and security and vulnerability, these are all the things that go with love. And you can't have that if you've got your God on high and everyone else is a tiny little soul. So what does Krishna do? In verse 33, then the omnipotent Supreme Lord casts his yoga maya. Here is now we can understand what this is. His yoga maya, divine power of illusion, but it's good illusion, it's in the form of maternal affection over the gopi who had come to understand the truth, right? Regular maya is bad. Just maya by the word maya by itself makes us think it's synonymous with ignorance or avidya, makes us think I'm this body, I'm this mind, and this is my home, and this is my family. It's all illusion. Why is it illusion? Because the soul has nothing to do with that, just temporarily in this one little life. The next life, it'll have a whole other family and situation. I have a dog family. So it's not real in the sense of durable, it's ephemeral. So that kind of maya, the yogi is trying to break free of that to realize that they're Atman. That's classic yoga. But bhakti, There's a not just Maya, but Yoga Maya. We know yoga is good, right? Maya is bad, but yoga is good. So how do you put them together? A good thing and a bad thing. Yoga good, Maya bad. How does it work when you put them together? Well, this is also an illusion because it's Maya, but yoga, that takes us closer to God. So this is a power whereby God covers his majesty. And why? So that love can manifest and grow infinitely. So then the omnipotent Lord casts his Yoga Maya, divine power of illusion, in the form of maternal affection. There's different kinds of love. We mentioned already. So his mother loves him as a mother. So it's maternal affection, but there could be, we'll read it. The next story will be the loving God as a beloved. And there are stories where you love God as a friend, which are my favorite stories, but unfortunately, we don't have time to look at one of those in this course. My own preference are the Sakya Bhāva, God as friend, where Krishna plays with his little friends at the same age, and they wrestle, and they don't know he's God, and they wrestle with God, and they figure I got a 50% chance of wrestling Krishna to the ground. I'll give you, you wouldn't be thinking that if you knew it was God, right? So this is Yoga Maya. So he casts his Yoga Maya, power of illusion, in the form of maternal affection over the gopi who had come to understand the truth. Immediately the gopi's memory was erased. She forgot that whole vision in his mouth of all the universe. And now with Yoga Maya back in place, now she can go back to loving her child. She sat her son on her lap and returned to a previous state of mind. And what was that? Her heart full of intense love. Do you see how Yoga Maya is necessary for love? Take away Yoga Maya, you see majesty, and that's terrifying. She considered Hari, his mother, whose glories are sung by the Vedas. We read all about Brahman and in the Vedas. In the Upanishads, we read about Ishar and in the Shvetashvatara and God, the Sankhya Yoga. We read the Nyaya. We read all these. She considered that Ishvara, that all this discussion, around Ishvara that we touched upon in the course. We looked at it in different types of literature. She considered that Ishvara to be her very own son. That's bhakti for you, my friends. Okay, now we go to the next Leela. So let's go to the next reader. Don't forget to read the Bhāva blueprints for the quiz, just short. Bhāva means the type of love. Bhāva is love. Leela is sort of the actual activities through which love is expressed. And let's look at the next one. How much time do we have? We've got time. So book 10, chapter 9, that was chapter 8. Now a new Leela. One day, whenever it says once or once upon a time or one day, then it's the next Leela. When the house servants were busy with other chores, Yashoda, right, his mom, not the real mom, but you understand, babies are switched, that mother, Yashoda, wife of Nanda, in the cow herding community of Vraj, Vrindavan, she churned the milk herself as the servants are busy. Remembering the songs about the activities of her child, she sang them while she was churning yogurt. She was singing, like this is called kirtan. And this is one of the most common forms of bhakti yoga. You go to a Hindu temple and there'll be singers chanting, maybe a musician or two, some harmonium, and they'll be chanting songs, these sorts of stories from Krishna or the Rama story or Shiva story. That's what kirtan is. It's one of the activities of bhakti that you're most likely to encounter nowadays in the yoga studios in the West. Obviously, they're primarily teaching poses, which really actual yoga is only a minuscule part of yoga, but yoga in the West now is going to be exclusively defined as poses. So there's students everywhere, wherever you are, I'm sure. You walk down your high street, there'll be a yoga studio, if not more. But some of them now more and more are having kirtans. Kirtan is beginning to make its presence felt in the West, especially in yoga studios. They might have someone come in once a week, and those who are interested will come. So, but this is actually spreading, this practice of kirtan. And these and people might not even know they do the kirtan, they just like it. They might not actually know what the words mean, but what the words mean in Sanskrit often are these little stories about these leelas in just a few words. Not we're reading the entire story in the literary form, but if you're chanting about it, you just pull out one or two little references to these stories. So Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya. That's a kirtan, and it just says Govinda, the one who looks after the cows. Gopala, the same thing, the one who protects the cows. Radha Ramana, the lover of Radha, the gopi. So that's a kirtan, and 2 or 3 words, but these words refer to items in the Leela, and anybody that knows the stories, of course, understands what the kirtan is referring to. So if you have a chance to go to a kirtan, one of your local studios, yoga studio, or of course, if you're a Hindu, you go to a temple. But if you're not, you can still go to a temple. Don't be afraid. You're perfectly okay to go to a Hindu temple. Nothing weird. The only thing you have to do is take your shoes off outside and be respectful. Nothing other than that. No one's going to think you're weird. No one's going to. In fact, Hindus are very happy when Americans visit their holy places. There's no, I think you're not barred. Just be respectful. Dress decently. Be just out of respect. So the temple is a conservative place, just like a church is. In Italy, you can't go. You can't go into certain churches if you're wearing a miniskirt, for example. And when the miniskirts were the rage in the the 60s, they would make you wear a little shawl or something. So there's nothing unusual about that. Just leave your shoes outside, be respectful, and go in and look at the beautiful deities. And maybe if you have a Hindu, if you feel a little bit intimidated, if you're not Hindu, then get one of your Hindu friends to take you to the temple and have a wonderful cultural experience. That's what life is about, my friend. That's why you're taking this course. So we're encountering the Hindu philosophy in written form. So go and encounter it in a visual, in a cultural, in a temple setting. Just another expression. Give it a go. There's temples springing up all over the place in New Jersey. Just when I drive from Princeton to New Brunswick, I must pass half a dozen temples. So there she is, remembering the activities of a child. She sang them while she's churning yoga, right? So she's doing kirtan. And if you go check chapter 9, we read it, the Bhagavad Gita, Satatam kirtayanto mam. Can't remember the verse number, but somewhere in chapter 9, around 20s or 30s, the same word kirtan. They're always, my bhaktas are always chanting about my stories, about my what are the stories? The stories are the records of what Ishvara did when he incarnated in the world. These fantastic things. Okay. If Ishvara is God, then he incarnates in the world. You don't expect him to be working in an office from 9 to 5, do you? He's going to do far out things to reflect his infinite potency and power. Even if he does in this Krishna Lila hide that with his majesty, he still does very cool stuff. Well, tell me what you think about this story. So Yashoda churned, swaying back and forth. Her bracelets were moving on her arms, which were tired from pulling the rope. And her earrings were singing to and fro. Malati flowers dropped from her hair, and her face with its beautiful eyebrows was sweating. She wore a linen cloth bound by a girdle on her broad, sloping hips, and her quivering breasts were leaking milk out of affection for her son, right? We explained that, and now you know why, because it reoccurs. Gives us an insight into the intense state of mind of love of the mother. Hari approached his mother, Hari, Ishvara, Krishna, as she was churning, right? So she's churning the milk. And he's 3, he's just still a toddler, desiring to drink her breast milk. Grasping the stirring strip, he obstructed her, demanding her love. You know how children are, they're hungry. they need to eat right then. There's no way you could say to them, sweetheart, can we wait till dinner? No way. They're going to scream their head off. At a certain age, Krishna's at that age, so he stops her churning the butter, demanding her love. Just like any child would, but this is God. And of course, the mother will always will always satisfy the child at that age. So what happened? So he climbed on her lap. Looking at his smiling face, she allowed him to drink from her breast, which was leaking milk from affection. There you are again. I don't want you. We go run into it all over the place. But before he was satisfied, she put him down in a hurry and rushed off when the milk that had been on the fire boiled over. So she's nursing him. All of a sudden, she realizes, oh my God, I left the milk on the stove, puts him down, runs off. Right now, if you're two, you don't know your mother has run off to take the milk off the stove. All you know is you're nursing 1 minute and you haven't finished, you just started and you're hungry, and then your mum puts you down and runs away. How does that look from the frame of reference of a 2-year-old? You're going to freak out, aren't you? You can imagine. You're going to scream your head off. So, furious and biting his quivering lower lip with his teeth, Krishna broke the butter churning pot with a stone. Now he's being really naughty. With false tears in his eyes, he's pretending that, he went inside to a hiding place and ate the freshly churned butter. So he breaks the pot now, and he's stealing butter. But for them, would be like ice cream for a kid today. So you eat just butter. It's like a great thing to do. Yashoda removed the milk, right? She'd gone off to remove the milk. Back she comes. She removed the boiling milk and came in again. Noticing the broken vessel, she saw what her son had done. Not finding him there, she laughed. She's never going to be upset. How are you going to be upset with God and adorable Krishna? But you're still a mum, so you still have to do your dharma as a mum, right? And that is to, your son is mischievous. You got to train your child. You got to communicate dharma to your child, right? Even if he's God, she doesn't know God, so she's got to try to instruct him, like any mother has to, or any parent. So did we read this? Yes. So not finding him there, she laughed. She spied him standing on top of the base of a rice husking mortar. She saw him. He's again standing on the mortar because he's reaching the butter pot like he did before, and he's breaking it to get the butter. He was wantonly giving butter to a monkey from a hanging pot. Now, these monkeys are great bhaktas. If they, in order to be a monkey, when Krishna incarnates, to be a monkey in the forest right there, you have to do bhakti for many, many lives. It's not just a random monkey. To be near God in any form, whether it's a mother, of course, that's the most intimate, perhaps, but even just to be a cow or a calf or a monkey means that you have done amazing bhakti for many, many lives until you get to the point where it's 100% only God, nothing else, no other desires. And then you just become like a puppet, and then God takes care of all your needs, your food, whatever you need. You leave it all in the hands of God. So, hey, there he's being really naughty, and he's looking anxious on account of his thieving, because he knows he's being very bad now. But he's upset because his mum dumped him and run off. From his point of view, he hadn't finished nursing. She approached her son stealthily from behind. Seeing her with stick in hand, Krishna hastily climbed down from there and fled as if in fear, behaving like a normal little 2-year-old. The gopi ran after him. Now again, we're reminded who he is. Who is he? She ran after him whom the minds of yogis, directed by the power of asceticism, are not able to reach. She's running after God. And the great yogis sitting, concentrating their mind, trying to reach God. You cannot reach God by your concentration, my friends, by your great austerity. No, God reveals himself through bhakti, not through your powerful meditation. Because that would mean you could control God. If through the power of your meditation, you could have a vision of God, it means that you could now control God. As soon as you enter intense meditation, bang, like as if a command, and now God has to appear. No, not like that at all. You could intensely meditate for a million lifetimes and nothing will happen. You may realize your soul that way. Yeah, you can realize your Atman that way, but not God. Not through your willpower and your yogic virtuosity. No. It's only through devotion and love and surrender. You have to surrender your ego, give up any idea that I can reach God through my power, through my yoga, through my prayers or anything else. You surrender. and completely give up all the ego, and then just you beg Krishna whenever to be so kind and gracious to give you bhakti and to maybe manifest. You're begging, and not in any way demanding or expecting. That's not bhakti, my friends. So we're reminded, the gopi is running after Krishna, whom the minds of yogis, directed by the power of asceticism, directed meaning they're fixed, they're not able to reach that way. The slender-waisted woman, mother, chased Krishna, her progress slowed by the burden of her broad, moving hips. A trail of flowers falling from a loosened plate in her wake, she seized it. Krishna he sees that she's tired, so he lets her catch it. Because he loves his mom. He doesn't want her to be tired and sweating. So this is reciprocal love, my friends. This is what love looks like. This is what love of God looks like. If you like this sort of thing, join us next semester. We'll do a whole course on this, on bhakti and love of God and the different stages. And we'll read a couple of these stories again, and then we'll look at the analysis of bhakti from a 16th century text. So consider joining us if you find this attractive. It's async, so I think we're waiting for permission. It hasn't been passed yet, but we're hoping it'll be asynchronous. You can download it, add it. Very welcome. If we'll be bringing a lot of philosophy with you, but it will be theology that next semester. It'll be this bhakti. We'll be reading this same text. And then looking at analysis of, but not in a heavy philosophical way. It won't be that sort of hard work that philosophy requires. Be more theology. Grasping his arm, she chastised him, scaring him. Looking up with eyes agitated with fright, the guilty boy was crying and rubbing his eyes, smearing the mascara with his hands. In India, the men wear mascara. I don't know about all over India, but certainly Rajasthan and UP and certain places. Certainly the little boys, the mothers put mascara on their eyes, and certainly in Rajasthan and in some of the rustic areas, men wear the mascara. The cowherding men, and they look quite handsome with the mascara in Rajasthan, and their beautiful, colorful turbans as well. So the boy was crying and rubbing his hands, smearing the mascara with his hands. Okay. Now, what's going to happen now? Get me out of the way. Yashoda was fond of her child, and so threw away the stick when she realized her son was frightened, right? She was running after him with a stick. Unaware of the power of her son, remember, she forgot all about that vision. She doesn't know he's God. She wanted to bind him with a rope. Now, you might think, hang on a minute. Well, remember, they're in the forest. They don't have playpens. Nowadays, you go to, Babies R Us, and you buy a playpen, and, in your kitchen, and one of those bouncy things, you put your kid in it, and it bounces up and down, and it's safe. But what are you going to do if you're in the forest in ancient India? You tie your kid up to a tree. What else are you going to do? There's Bengal, there's tigers out there in the forest, and snakes. So she tied him with a rope just to keep him safe while she's doing her household chores. It's not different from putting him in a playpen. Maybe 100 years' time, they'll say, oh, they stuck their kids in these playpens as like little prison houses. Then maybe they'll criticize us for the ways that we try to protect our children. But she bound him with a rope. Now, how are you going to bind God with a rope? Because look, Krishna has no beginning and no end, right? God's infinite. No inside, no outside. He is everything. So if you're everything, there's no question of inside and outside, because that means there's two different things, inside and outside. But if you're everything, then you're everything. So you have no beginning, no end, no inside, no outside. He is the beginning and end. He is the source of creation, cyclical creation. And he is the inside and outside of the universe. He's everything in the universe, and he's his own self beyond it, outside of it, and the whole spiritual dimension beyond the universe. But the gopi tied him with a rope to the mortar as if he were a common being. And here again, she considered Krishna, who is the unmanifest truth beyond sense perception. Remember the Upanishads, you can't see him, you can't grasp him with the mind, you can't grasp him with the senses. So she considered him to be her own son. because of Yoga Maya. Right? So if you get on the quiz, what is Yoga Maya? Which of the following is correct? Is it this? Is it that? Is it this? Is it that? Yoga Maya is the power of illusion that covers, by which Krishna covers his devotees so that they can love him but without any majesty, covers his majesty so that they can be close to him. Because majesty, my friends, remember this, creates distance and even fear. And go check out the 11th chapter of the Gita, Arjuna, and how, how terrified he was. So she goes, she's going to bind him with a rope. So, and this Leela is called the rope binding Leela, Damodara, Damodara. Dhamma Udara, the Dhamma, the binding of the Udara, the stomach. The rope for binding her guilty child was short by 2 fingers, right? She got the rope and it was this much, right? Here's the rope, here's a nice rope, it's actually in my belt. And it's 2 fingers too short. Okay. So the gopi joined another one to the first. Now that's going to be long enough. But when that also was too short, how is that possible? The first one was only 2 fingers too short, and she adds another one, the same length. So, but it's also too short. So she joined another one to it, a third. But however many ropes she brought out, they were always 2 fingers lacking. So this is Leela. This is God being just having fun with his devotees. And they don't think there's anything weird about it. Look, in this way, while all the gopis, they chuckle with amusement, they're under Yoga Maya, they just think, oh, that's Krishna being cool again. However many ropes we tie together, they're always 2, we can't wrap them around his stomach, 2 fingers too short. Now you understand what Leela is. Yashoda joined together all the ropes in her household. Smiling, she was struck with wonder. Didn't think much of it, because Krishna's doing this every day. He's doing cool things like this, but because of Yoga Maya, they appreciate it, they wonder at it, they marvel at it, but they don't think it's weird in a scary sort of way, or in a way that makes them think that he might be God. Seeing the efforts of his mother, whose limbs were sweating and whose wreath of flowers had fallen from her hair, Krishna became compliant in his own binding. You cannot bind God. Of course you can't. You can't even see God with your eyes. But out of love, she's trying to tie him up out of love to protect him from the dangers of the forest. That's why she's binding him in the first place, out of love. So he has a little bit of fun. Has a bit of fun for himself, for everybody, all chuckling. Look at all the ropes in the household, and still 2 fingers too short. Everyone's having fun with it. But then he sees she's sweating a bit. She's running backwards. The boy's getting more ropes, and he doesn't want to upset his mom, just as she would never upset her child. So he says, okay, now we had our fun. And he becomes compliant in his own binding. God allows himself to be bound. What a wonderful metaphor. God allowing himself to be bound. And really, what is he bound by? Okay, he's bound by the rope, but he's bound by the love of his mother that he allows her to tie. And here he gets explained. And then, but indeed, by this act, dear Parikshit, remember all of these stories are being recited to Parikshit, the king, 7 days to live, loincloth, right? Grandson of Arjuna sitting on the banks of the Ganga. Sukha came in. He asked those questions. What is it? What should one do at the moment of death? What should one do with one's mind? This is what one should do with one's mind. Think about God. And how do you think about God? Just some abstract principle, like some intelligence out there somewhere. That's how are you going to just think about that all day? Or you're going to walk around all day thinking, oh, there's an intelligence up there. Oh, there's an intelligence out there. Well, in the Krishna, we could do, I suppose. Why not? But this is what you think about in the Krishna tradition. These stories, that intelligence back out there, the creator that Nyaya argued for, that this universe is a product, it is a producer, all of that. The Brahman of the Upanishads, from which this creation emerges, all of those references are now that being, that intelligence is right here, getting tied up by his mom to keep him out of trouble. What do you think of that, my friends? If you like that, then that's bhakti. That's what Krishna bhakti is. Attraction to these leelas. And if you don't like it, well, that's not bhakti. It's no big deal. But whether it is or it isn't, it's the name that is given to enjoying these stories and appreciating these stories is bhakti. That's all. And if And if you don't appreciate them, it's not bhakti. There's lots of other things one can enjoy and appreciate, but bhakti is the appreciation, being intrigued by, and ultimately falling in love with this little being. That if you read all of these stories, we're just reading 2 chapters and a couple more next time. Eventually fall in love, and then what happens? And the more you absorb the mind, the more then it becomes like even mundane love, right? You get so, you know, when you're a teenager, you fall in love. You know, when you get a bit older, you become a cynic. When you're young, you think, oh, I'm in love, and then you're prepared to give everything up and run off with your beloved. So many times. So then, what about God then? Your mind fall in love with God, mind becomes attracted to God. At a certain point, nothing else is interesting. You lose interest. And that's what all yoga requires, to giving up desires for anything in this world. So, by this act, Parikshit, Shuka now was stepping out of the story, and Shuka now is addressing Parikshit, the king. The quality of submission to his devotee was demonstrated by Hari. God submits to his devotee. Normally, the devotee submits to God, right? Patanjali, Ishvara Pranidhana, you surrender to gods. So most theistic traditions all over the world, Christian, Islamic, Jewish, you surrender to God. But here, you do all of that for many, many, many lives. But when you get to this 100%, when there's nothing other than God, and you care for nothing other than God, then it flips the other way around. Now God surrenders to you. And you want to tie him up, and he lets you, and if that's going to make you happy, he lets you do that. So by this act, dear Parikshit, the quality of submission to his devotee was demonstrated by Hari. Despite the fact that he's only constrained by his own free will, nothing can constrain him from outside, but his own free will, he freely allows his beloved mother to tie him up. He doesn't want her to get tired running around looking for more ropes. He says, okay, no, we had a bit of fun. Now you can tie me up. And then we're reminded, by him, this universe, along with those who control it, is controlled. No one can control him. He controls all the universe, and those who control, meaning the celestials. Neither Brahma, the great Brahma, the one who's the secondary creator, he's the first of the celestials, and he takes the matter. Matter is created by Vishnu, but he's not going to create the forms. He lets the celestial being Brahma creates the form of the universe. So in that sense, neither Brahma nor Shiva, another great form of Ishvara, nor Shri, the goddess of fortune. These are all forms of Ishvara, other forms. And Shri is always with Vishnu. So not even Shri, despite being united with his body, obtain the benediction which the gopi attained from Krishna, the giver of liberation. Shri's relationship with Vishnu, Lakshmi Narayana, is quite formal. You know, she knows he's God, and she is his consort, and there's love, of course, but there's a certain formality, there's a certain majesty that's being respected between them. Not with Yashoda, no majesty. Now all of that's hidden. So that's what it's saying. Not even Shri gets to tie up God. She's not going to tie up Narayan. How's she going to do that? God, the son of the gopi, is not attained as easily in this world by embodied beings, nor by the wise, the big pundits, and the Vedantins, the knower of the Upanishads. None of that. It's not attained, nor the knowers of the self. You can know yourself. You can realize your own Atman by yoga, but know nothing about Bhagavan. So he's not known. Cannot know God by any other means, as he is by those who have devotion. Only by bhakti, and Krishna, remember the verses in the Gita, Bhaktya Tvananyaya Sakya Ahameva Vidu Arjuna. Only by bhakti can you know me. It's repeated several times in the Gita. Okay, so here we have then, continuing with our course and now seeing Ishvara in this very different light. We're seeing Ishvara as the beloved object of adoration and love by his devotees, and Krishna, and in the form of Krishna, who then engages in these leelas and these wonderful little, like often called pastimes. The translation for leela, I'm not sure it's a perfect term, but I use it myself. I can't think of a better term. Better to use the Sanskrit term. Why do we have to find English terms that are not quite right? We should be learning Sanskrit terms. Yoga spread to the West, so now we need to learn new vocabulary. not force it through our categories. We Westerners need to step out of our box and learn terms that don't translate well. And then we should learn it in their original language then. So Lila. So hope you enjoyed those. So we, so that's so this is Vatsalya Bhāva. This is Bhāva means love of God, and read the preambles of the two stories that we read, the two Leelas, or at least the two chapters. There's a couple of Leelas in each chapter, 8 and 9, and read the Bhāva blueprint. It's called a Bhāva blueprint, which gives you a little map about the specific nature of the love that's going to be expressed in that story. Okay, so Bhāva is love. It's a state of mind that loves God in a particular flavor. Why should love be just one size? That it's just one thing, everyone experiences the same thing. No, God is infinitely variegated. If God is infinite, he must have infinite qualities and infinite forms and infinite incarnations, and therefore they're all different. So you get to be attracted to whichever one your mind is attracted to, and then your mind will be attracted in a certain way, and that was your path. That's the type of attraction you have. You call it love if you wish. So infinite paths. So Yashoda's Bhāva is maternal. She loves Krishna as a child. Okay. So we'll continue then with next week with Krishna and the gopis. Here's now his girlfriends, you might say. We'll look at that different kind of Bhāva now. This is the Bhāva of a lover to a beloved. And Krishna and the gopis are probably the most famous episodes of Krishna Lila in Indian culture. We judge that by, you know, how often they surface in art and song and drama. And the Krishna and the gopis and his beloved, the gopis are the females, gopas are, unfortunately, if we had one more class, we would look at the Leelas of Krishna with his equal little gopa friends when they go cow herding in the forest, which is my favorite Bhāva. That's my Bhāva, which I would love to share with you, but we're one class too short, even though we left ourselves, remember, on the syllabus a couple of weeks, precisely for this, so that we could fit in, you know, we could let the rest of the course, if it needed an extra week or two, we allowed ourselves that opportunity. We took advantage of that a little bit. And so we only have one class left. So even though I would like to share the Sakya Bhāva, we'll look at the Gopi Bhāva simply because it's the most well-known of the Krishna and the Krishna tradition. All right, my friends. So hope all is well with you all. I'd love to see some of you next semester if you are interested in this Krishna. None of that philosophy stuff. We'll be reading these stories and thinking about them and analyzing them. And we'll use a 16th century theological text, perhaps the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, to see how the theologians analyze this kind of love in these different forms. So if you find this attractive, consider joining us next semester. Otherwise, we'll meet you one more time and you have your final quiz. You did really well on the second one. I hope you'll feel good, a little bit more confident. 28 of you got 100%. So I don't want to hear anybody out there that didn't do well. You need to look in your own heart and ask yourself, did you really watch the videos and do the reading? Because if 28%, if 28 people, that's a quarter or a fifth of the class, but 100, clearly it was a very easy quiz. I've never had that many people get 100. So if you haven't done well in the other two quizzes, do well in the final, and we will pay attention if your grade jumps up a lot, and because then we'll accept that, okay, you didn't do well for whatever reason, but you pulled your socks up, as we say in England, and you made an effort. And if your score jumps significantly, we will take that into consideration. All right, so still got time. If you're getting 60s, you're failing the course, my friends. I mean, we don't like to fail anybody. I don't know. You might get a D or something, but probably usually we get, you know, A's are 90s and B's are 80s and C's are 70s and then D's are 60s. Uh, but sometimes we do a curve, but it doesn't look like we need to do a curve if 28 people got 100 in the last quiz. But we'll see how it all looks like when we get the final figures. But all I'm saying right now is still have a chance to do something about your grade if you didn't get good grades. And I think if you're honest, you probably admit, most of you, there's always exceptions, that you haven't done the work. And that's up to you. That's a choice you made, but still have a chance to rectify. Okay, my friends, have a great rest of the day. And I will see you, I guess, on Monday when I record the last session. Jai Shri Radhe Sham. In Vrindavan today, this holy place for Krishna, it's a sacred place now. And people greet each other. They say Jai Shri Radhe Sham. That's the way. Instead of saying Namaskar or something like that, they go Jai Shri Radhe Sham.